insightful for you. So when we say metrics, metrics is about transforming the collected data into the most viable indicators of operational success. So again, operational success might be different things to different businesses, but in a sales organization, certainly this might be the customer retention rate. In a retail organization, this might be the customer satisfaction. In an operation, this might be a number of accidents, health and safety. It might be productivity, the downtime in machinery. So it means different things to different people, and that's why you as an HR person, through your understanding and your business acumen of your operation, you design a dashboard that reports the health of your initiatives on both individual and collective ends. Now, when you do that, the first thing you do usually is dashboarding. And most of the HR experts that I met through my career, through those 19 years, they stop here. They stop at the dashboarding, where you just really keep on reporting the numbers. And after a while, they become, or they risk of becoming a little bit meaningless, and it start being a little bit boring, might I say. However, when you take this data and you start running statistical methods to investigate those metrics, you will generate insights that will help you make better decisions, scientific decisions, unbiased decisions, decisions that are not only based on your hunches, but on some very rigorous mathematical tools that would really allow you to bring more rigor and more robustness to those business decisions and hopefully impact the results. So the last step then would be taking the action or influencing the decision makers to take this kind of action through, like, as I'm sure you know, some storytelling, some compelling presentations, some communication, and some creativity as well in terms of that. So that's a little bit of an introduction about the job of an HR analyst. I'm gonna hold for 15 seconds just to make sure that all is good, everything is clear, and if you have any question, give you the opportunity to type it in before I move to the first of my 3 examples that I'm gonna share today from a practical point of view, how we use statistics in HR. Sindian, the book is called The Power of People, and I can write it down for you for sure. And if you would like to have the all the slides, including the reference, that would be my pleasure as well. Just I'm gonna share my email. You can ask me for it. That would be my pleasure. Great. Rana saying good morning. I see that we have so many participants this morning. I hope you're enjoying this discussion. Araxi, my ex-colleague, thank you very much. We used to work together in Lebanon. I hope you're doing great. Thank you. I know it's only 9 o'clock on a Sunday on your weekend, so that would be a real pleasure having you on your day off and this kind of early in the morning. So let's move forward towards the first example. And again, the methods are so much, as I said, and the potentiality of using statistics in HR is honestly so great. Karen is joining from UK. I know her. We were studying our level 7 diploma in human resources in CIPD as well. And at her end now, I guess it's even earlier. So thanks again for joining, Karen. I hope you're enjoying the discussion so far. So my first statistical tool that we can use in HR is correlation. So what does correlation mean? For those of you who hate math, let me just put it in a simple perspective. So correlation is a measure in statistics that measures the degree to which two variables move in relation to each other's. Like the very famous example where the more the temperature goes high, the sales of ice cream goes high. However, it does mean nothing that one of the variable is causing the other to change. So it might be related and it might be not. But however, correlation itself is whether two variables change together. As one goes up, the other goes up, or if one goes down, the other goes down. So that's a little bit of a correlation. And correlation usually is used in the beginning of the analysis of numerical values, just to start giving us insights on whether some of the HR variables can be explored for connection. So it's just an insight. So what are some of the correlations that we can explore? So imagine that you have departments or teams. You can correlate the number of team members versus their performance ranking. So this way you explore the optimal number of team members within a team that would create the highest level of performance. You can try to understand the relationship between the age of an employee and the number of trainings they attend. That would be another correlation. Now you might think that, why should I do that? You can do that for so many things. And I'm going to share a little bit of a story once I finish this slide. You can correlate the number of interviews or the number of employees screened out versus the interview duration. So imagine that you're meeting 100 candidates for my the people here who work in recruitment. You might really be interested to check how long an interview is taking when you screen a candidate out. And then you might check whether there is some kind of bias from the interviewer. Is it the number of questions that you ask, etc.? There's, like, as I said before, limitless potentialities. Another thing that HR admin people can check is the number of dependents of a certain employee versus how long they stay in the organization. So you might think, if I'm just gonna elaborate a little bit on this, imagine that you find that there is a causality between the number of dependents and job tenure, and you can confirm that people who have more kids and more dependents are going to stay longer in the organization. Then you might redesign your compensation and benefits policies to be more family oriented, or even to, encourage people to have more dependents, and that would be for the best of both. Now again, this example needs more elaboration, but I'm just throwing out some HR hunches that might make sense for you. Now, imagine that you are discussing the effectiveness of a certain training session, and you're trying to correlate participant satisfaction, like the happy sheets that you fill by the end of the training, versus the number of activities that a training uses during this session. So you might find out if the participants are getting highly satisfied, the number of activities is higher, and that this way you might start checking more this relationship, whether there is a causation between those two variables, and again give advice to trainers to increase the number of activities. Now you can try to correlate tardiness to work versus the distance to work, which is again an administration issue, and then you can maybe try to focus your hiring from some areas, certainly if that's lawful, because in some cases that would be more of a discriminatory approach. You can check absenteeism versus age, absenteeism versus gender. You can check sick leaves versus age and try to explore all these kinds of things. So the main idea is, again, analyzing these kind of relationships to take decisions that would impact the HR metrics, and by that mean impact the organization metrics. So to share with you one of the examples that I've done practically with one of my assignments with a client was the following. So this client had a leadership competency framework that was measured through a multi-rater feedback or a 360-degree feedback. And in the same time, they had a performance management system that is generating the ratings out of 100. And they really wanted to know whether the competencies they chose for their competency framework are by any means impacting the performance of people and the output mainly. Because from an HR perspective, I'm sure you know that you choose the competencies that are most relevant to a certain job to make sure that the productivity of the job holders goes higher. And there's where you design all the learning and development, all the reward structure, the job enrichment, and everything around that. So the result was a little bit astonishing. We just started by the correlation, and I'm using this example. This is the output that I got using a software called SPSS. I hope that some of you are familiar with it now. In the market, there are so many softwares. I like SPSS because it's, for me, very friendly. So what we tried to correlate was the APO, or which is the short of annual performance objectives achievement, versus the average score of all the competencies, versus 3 competencies that were mainly about the ethics of the candidate, which are committing to the values of the group, respect for others, and integrity. And whenever you do correlation, the first thing you need to look for is the values that have a star or 2. Why? Because this is the significant part of the result. And by significant, it means, and in statistics, this is very famous, and I'm going to stop a while here to explain what significance means. Significant means that whatever result you had in terms of the statistical tests that you're getting, this result is not due to chance, because sometimes you might get certain numbers and you might feel that there is a relationship here between the variables. However, the statistics method will tell you whether this is happening by chance or not. And when we say a test has generated a high level of significance, as you can see here in the note that SPSS automatically generates, it says there is a significant correlation with a up to a 0.01 level of confidence, which is 99% level of confidence. And unfortunately enough for this client, as you can see, if you read with me the first line, and we're reading the values of Pearson correlation. Certainly, the Pearson correlation of APO versus APO is 1 because it's the same variable. However, the correlation between the performance objective and the average competency rating is only 0.026 without any kind of significance. And this means, again, unfortunately, that this client has chosen a set of competencies. They spent so much time developing definitions, writing job levels, etc., bringing together job profiles, and at the end of the day, the choice of those competencies didn't impact the performance of the employees, which is the ultimate end in mind here. So that's why the client needs to go back and really revamp the way the competencies were designed. Now you can see that I have a higher Pearson correlation value between the performance objectives and the 3 variables that I chose, which are about work ethics. However, again, the value is very low and there is no significance here. So again, those ethical attributes chosen by the organization are not impacting the performance of the employees. So that's the first example about using correlations in getting insights about how we can evaluate or redesign competency frameworks. I hope it's all clear so far, all's okay. You have any questions in mind that you'd like to ask? All good so far? That's excellent. So let me Asher, you would like to have the data collection questionnaire. The data collection questionnaire is in fact the competency framework of the client. Unfortunately, I cannot share this. That's confidential data. I'm sorry for that, but I'm just sharing the finding because it was really surprising for them to see that there's no correlation at all between their competencies and their performance rating. So that was about correlation. My second tool in statistics, it's called Cronbach's Alpha. It's a way of validating some questionnaires. I'm sure that some of you come up with some surveys that they use internally to measure employee satisfaction, to measure some skills, to gather the training needs analysis of some departments. So you have to evaluate a certain event, to check employee engagement, anything. So Sometimes you design this kind of questionnaire yourself, either because you cannot find something ready in the market, or because what is ready in the market is really expensive and you don't want to spend so much money on that. So how do you make sure that what you're trying to measure is actually getting measured? Let me make myself clearer. First, remember the definition of this number called Cronbach alpha. What you're trying to do here is the internal consistency of questionnaires. So let's assume that you have a Likert scale survey, and you would like to test that this survey is reliable. You need to check the value of the Cronbach's alpha that will tell you whether your questionnaire was designed accurately and is it valid for measuring the variable of interest. Like, as an example, imagine that I am measuring employee motivation. So that's what I'm trying to measure. And for that, I would ask all the respondents of my questionnaire to respond using a 5 Likert scale measure. When I say the 5 Likert scale, it's something that goes from totally disagree, disagree, neither agree or disagree, agree, or totally agree. So you're trying to ask those 4 questions, hoping that altogether these questions are going to measure the motivation of employees. So you're saying, I'm willing to utilize my expertise at work. I take initiatives to help my company reach its objectives. I expect that my company will appreciate my performance, and I expect that my company will reward my performance. Certainly, those questions are related to intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, and you're collecting data from totally disagree to totally agree. What you need to do next is to transform those 5 aspects or 5 choices from totally disagree to totally agree into a value. Now, if you bring all, for every answer, you collect Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and you replace totally disagree with 1, disagree with 2, neutral with 3, agree with 4, and totally agree with 5, then you add all those together. You can divide by 20 and then you measure motivation between 0 and 1, or you can divide by 4 and you will measure motivation between 0 and 5. So imagine now that you have 100 respondents where you have the answers of questions for each of the 4 questions and for motivation. You go to SPSS and then you calculate. It's very straightforward. Whenever you input the data in the statistics software, the calculation is straightforward. You will not have to do more than a couple of clicks, and you will get the value of alpha. Now, usually, if you have a value that is above 0.7, because alpha varies usually between 0 and 1. So if you have any value above 0.7, that you can say that those 4 questions are measuring employee motivation altogether, because this relates with some principle stating that the 4 answers for the same person needs to converge somehow through the answers, through the choices of the answer, and this is a statistical theory. However, as I need to say, you don't really have to delve into why Cronbach alpha measures internal consistency of a questionnaire. All you need to do is to use it as end user of statistical methods. That's a very nice thing, especially for those who would like to shy away from more math. in terms of HR. You don't have to do that. You don't have to understand how the calculation of alpha is done. All we need is this beautiful end result. Certainly, the validity of questionnaire is measured also using factor analysis, which is a more sophisticated tool that I would invite you to read about if you would like to. But for the sake of this webinar, I'm sharing those kind of examples. Now, the third and the final example is going to be about predictive modeling and linear regression. So what we did is trying first with correlation to understand the relation between HR variables or business and HR variables. And then we moved into alpha to check the validity of questionnaire, the internal consistency of questionnaires. Now I'm gonna try to do some prediction. When I say prediction, it really means that you're trying to check how things are going to go in the future. It's like Eric Seigel calls it as if you try to hold a crystal ball for your people metrics. And there are so many examples now of HR models that using data can predict your resignation day. They can predict your performance rating. They can predict how much sales you will make. They can predict the customer satisfaction rating through a series of testing that you do. They can somehow predict as well whether you're gonna be successful on your onboarding or not. So many things. As I keep on saying, the opportunities, the possibilities are limitless, to be very honest. And I hope that I'm motivating each and every one of you to go and delve into this more and understand more the power of those tools. So now this example is the most elaborate, and it was done based on a hypothesis that says the following. So this is a model that can be used in learning and development. So those of you who work in learning and development might want to check this up close. So usually in research, you come up with a hunch that you call hypothesis. It's like an assumption that you're trying to validate or not validate in the beginning of your research. And for every hypothesis, usually there is something that is the counter hypothesis, or what we call the null hypothesis, that will say that whatever you're suggesting is not true or is happening by mere luck, only by chance. It's not significant. As I said, those stars that you see on the SPSS output or on any kind of output, some Excel can do some of this as well. So the hypothesis that I'm assuming here, again, it's an exercise that has been done in 2019, sorry. The provision of regular high-quality training programs, financially appreciated by participants, provided by expert trainers that are interesting and relevant for employees, will positively impact the motivation level of employees. So in simple terms, what I'm trying to say is that if you offer employees trainings in a regular fashion of high quality by a high caliber trainer, where the topics are relevant and interesting for their jobs, and when they appreciate the amount of money you spend on this training, then their level of motivation will go up. So as you can see, I'm trying to explain the change in employee motivation, which is called my dependent variable, through the change of 5 independent variables that you can see to your left, which are training regularity, quality, trainer's ability, relevance and interest, and financial appreciation. So, coming from a learning and development background, what and why this is being done? This is being done because I wanted to suggest an alternative for Kirkpatrick model, which is one of the most famous models of measuring the impact of training on business. So I tried to say during this research that if training can impact motivation, and we are sure that motivation impacts performance, then training impacts performance without going to the hassle of and the complications of the Kirkpatrick methods that are now available in the market. So as I said, I came up with 5 variables that through which I'm trying to predict one variable, which is the employee motivation. How do I define those variables? So employee motivation is the strength of a tendency to act in a certain way, expecting something in return, whether external or internal. The regularity of training is how often employees are invited to attend the training, and whether they believe that if they ask for a training, they're going to get it. That's the second variable. The third variable is the quality of training program, which is the appeal of material design, the methods used, the logistics of the training, such as the location, the amenities, and everything. The abilities of the trainer are mainly the credibility that she or he has, especially in the subject, his skills or her skills in delivering the program, and their interpersonal skills. The relevance and interest of the topic are defined when the participants can establish some kind of interest with the topic itself, and they can see a link between the subject discussed and any aspect of their daily work. And finally, the financial appreciation, which is the last independent variable, is whether the participants are aware of and appreciative of the amount of money spent on training. So that was the model. And again, what I'm trying to see is how would a change in the independent variable be reflected on employee motivation. So somehow I'm trying to predict how employee motivation will change if the 5 variables here change. So to do that, my first test of the hypothesis was a correlation test. I would like to take this as an opportunity to go back to correlation, and unlike the table that we had in the competency versus performance of the client I spoke to you before about, here you can see the first 5 variables, which is the relevant and interest, quality, financial appreciation, trainer capabilities, and regularities. They are the independent variable, and motivation is the dependent variable. So if you follow my last column and you read the Pearson correlation value, you will see that 4 out of 5 correlations are significant to a 99% level of confidence. Again, the level of confidence means that I'm 99% sure that my result is not due to chance, and there is a significant correlation between the variables. However, our first identified variable that showed very low level of correlation and no significance with motivation was the trainer's capabilities. This means that the trainer capabilities will not impact employee motivation or will not create variation in employee motivation. Remember, we're not here evaluating whether the training was effective or not. What we're evaluating here is whether the capabilities of the trainer will impact the willingness of the employees to work for the best of their organization. So that's what we're trying to do. All right. Don't think that the trainer capabilities are not important. All what we're saying is that they don't impact the employee motivation. Now that was the test of correlation that dropped us one of the variables, and then we moved to the last test, which is the test of regression. Now, what does regression mean? Regression studies the causality of the independent variables and how much they cause change on the dependent variable. So as you can read, the 4 variables that remained after the correlation test took away the trainer capabilities are the relevance and interest of the program, the financial appreciation, the regularity, and the quality. And the dependent variable is motivation. Now, as you can see here, I have, again, another variable that fails the test of significance, because here we have the value of significance, which needs to be less than 0.01. And for this case specifically, I decided to take a smaller interval of confidence and assume that anything above 0.05 is not significant. So here I'm not taking an interval of confidence of 99%. I'm taking an interval of confidence of 95%, which is, again, a very good interval of confidence. And as you can see, I am left with 3 variables that can predict employee motivation when you offer training. Those variables are regularity, relevance and interest, and financial appreciation. So, a little bit of background. This study was done in one country. It took into consideration 150 participants from 16 companies covering 10 industries. And that was the final results, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of predictability. So let's stop for a while and think about our dependent variable, which is employee motivation. I'm sure you know that this kind of construct is honestly dependent on so many variables. Like, it depends on the compensation and benefits, it depends on the overall situation, it depends on the leadership, on the organizational environment, on so many things. However, our 3 independent variables alone create 30.7% variation in employee motivation. And that's a lot. That's a lot in terms of variation. It means that using only those 3 variables, we can explain almost 31% of the change in employee motivation. So what does this mean? for people who are working in learning and development. It means that we need to offer training more in a more regular fashion. We need to choose training topics that are relevant and interesting for people. And finally, I guess we need to share the budget spent on training. We need to take care of small details that show that the company is keen to spend money on developing employees. And for that, you will have a higher impact on employee motivation through the training that you offer. So all this statistics analysis lead us to an equation, which is a mathematical equation, expressed in terms of a constant plus the constant, which is 2.39, plus some values multiplied by the three variables. It's just like a linear equation. If you plug the variables, like if you come and say, I have an employee that has been offered this training that regularly, and this is how relevant and interesting the trainings were, and this is how much he appreciates financially what has been spent. You plug those three variables in this equation, you multiply the numbers, and you will be able to predict his level of motivation or her level of motivation. That's future reading. And this means if you can calculate this, you can start having an alternative model of Kirkpatrick model that is currently used to evaluating training impact. That was the third example, the most elaborate. Certainly, as I said, there are still so many nice statistics methods of analysis, like chi-square, like logistic regression, like factor analysis, like normality tests. So many things that we can bring to the table to make sure that our data is interpreted at a much deeper level, and the decisions that we take are more significant. I'll leave you with the last piece of information about the facts currently available about HR analytics. The first fact is that HR is not anymore a safe haven from numbers for HR professionals. Those of us who chose HR to move away from calculations are now eagerly invited to come back. The Association of Talent Development in 2019 brought data and analytics as part of their competency framework for human resources professionals. The CIPD profession map now includes people analytics. However, the statistics that we have from the United Kingdom show that only 6%, this is 2019 numbers, only 6% of HR professionals use HR analytics regularly. And the LinkedIn reported in 2018 that the adoption rate of analytics at any kind of level has been only 18%. So there's an opportunity here that I would really invite you to grab it. So this way I come to the end of this webinar. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm gonna leave a couple of minutes if you have any questions that you'd like to type in. In this time, I'm going also to be typing my email. Should you like to have the slides or you have any questions, please. Oh, I mistyped it. Let me type it again, please. So it's rrizk@meirc.com. I would also offer you my mobile number in case you'd like to connect and ask me some questions about that, you would be most welcome. Thank you all. Thank you very much. I'm really glad. I hope you enjoyed this session. And I'd like to say that for those of you who would like to have a much wider knowledge about that, I'm running a certified class in Dubai on the second week of November. If you'd like to know more about it, I can share with you the details. It's a certified HR analyst course. It's a 5-day course endorsed by the Society of Human Resources Management and the Human Resources Institute. So you're most welcome if you'd like to use the tools, if you'd like to have the case studies and everything all together. And as well, if you'd like to offer this internally for your human resources team, we can offer this either on face-to-face basis or on virtual learning phases, which is another channel that we can offer our training solution through. Yes, sure. I believe I'm gonna have your emails and I'm gonna send you the slides. I'm also gonna share with you the link to the workshop details, to the outline. And please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. That's good. Yes, that's the book name. Let me show you the book name and the author's name directly on the slide. The book name is called The Power of People, and the author is Guinol. All right. So that's the book. All right. Thank you very much. I hope this was a fulfilling introduction for you. It was a great pleasure. And please stay in touch if you'd like to connect on LinkedIn. Again, this is how I spell my name. It's a French spelling, so it might not make sense for the English educated people here in the room. So get connected. Let's keep in touch. Let's keep on analyzing those numbers and contributing to the success of our organization. Enjoy your morning and hopefully to see you soon, either virtually or face-to-face. Bye-bye.
Meirc.com